We have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti Podcast. We want suffering to be diluted, alleviated, put away, explained away. But that doesn't help us to understand suffering. Hello and welcome to episode 288 of Urgency of Change. The Krishnamurti Podcast features carefully selected extracts from Krishnamurti's recorded talks. Each episode highlights his different approaches to universal and timeless themes that affect our everyday lives, the state of the world, and the future of humanity. This episode's theme is suffering. Upcoming themes are communication, flowering, and behaviour. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust, based at Brockwood Park in Hampshire, UK. Brockwood is also home to Brockwood Park School, a unique international boarding school offering a personalised holistic education inspired by Krishnamurti's teachings. Please visit brockwood.org.uk for more information. You can also find our regular Krishnamurti quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. Finally, if you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app. This episode on suffering has 4 sections. This first extract is from Krishnamurti's second talk in Saanen 1975 and is titled Vast Human Suffering.
Can I, without analysis, see the whole structure and all the depth of it, not just the words of it, of suffering, fear, and everlasting pursuit of pleasure? These are the 3 basic principles on which we function. Right? This is so. So which shall we start with? I think I'll start with suffering. Because suffering, not only physical, but psychological, when there is that suffering, everything is in operation. Your body, your nerves, your brain, you're completely held within that. Haven't you noticed it? Or you haven't suffered? Your body is nearly paralyzed. Your mind is held. Your nerves, your thought, everything is concentrated. Isn't that so? So, suffering of the loss of someone, suffering because one is utterly, desperately lonely. There is that suffering when you realize you are not loved and want to be loved. There is suffering that you realize nobody can help you. You're completely isolated. That you've lost all relationship with everything. That there is no answer. You want an answer, but you know very well inside yourself that there is no answer. You may run away in comfort, seeking comfort. Drugs, oh God knows what else. Drugs, the Bible or the Gita or the Guru, but thing remains. So, suffering both physical and psychological is a factor that makes man or woman completely held. And being enclosed in that suffering, one tries to get away, minimize. We say time will cure it. Or go to church and, the various things that we indulge in to escape from that factor of extraordinary concentration, of total energy. Which doesn't take place where there is fear and where there is pursuit of fear, a pleasure. It's only when there is this extraordinary suffering, which we all go through. In that suffering, all thought is held. Right? So, Christianity has made suffering into a parody. You know it, what's happening. And the Hindus, the ancient Hindus, knew what suffering was and gave a rational explanation. They say it is what you did in your past life, called karma, which is you acted wrongly. The word karma means it has a root meaning which means to act, to do. And therefore they say, past life you did wrong, therefore you are paying for it now. Be careful now, next life will be better. The promise of better life, next life, which you all want. And they're very clever at it. And what is a man who is suffering out of loneliness, out of desperation, out of realizing that there is no security, knowing that you have lost everything that you held in death, and thought itself at that moment is paralyzed. Have you noticed all this? Have you been aware of it? You have, which means there is no movement of thought in any direction. No hope, no desire for comfort. You know very well this all escapes, which is correct thinking. That's what I want. So, what takes place in the mind which has known this suffering and which has not found an answer, Because to find an answer is incorrect thinking. I wonder if you see that. Because this very suffering is the product of thought. Because I'm attached to you and you desert me. That's a paralyzing action. I've lost you, in which I've invested my comfort, my desire, my sexual appetites, everything in you. I've lost you. You're dead. And I call that suffering. What is a mind that sees the incorrect thinking of escape? Escape is incorrect thinking. To rationalize is incorrect thinking. To accept it is incorrect thinking. Or to deny it is incorrect thinking. But only the fact, which is what is. What takes place in that mind knowing suffering is a distorting factor. There is not only personal, separate suffering, as you and I, and also there is the suffering of mankind. The whole of suffering. The suffering that has been brought about through wars. Millions of mothers have cried, or wives, or whatever they are. There is this vast cloud of suffering. Personal suffering and also the universal suffering, the global suffering, through economic lack of money, lack of food, lack of education, ignorance, poverty. All that is vast human suffering, which is part of my consciousness. Right? Please follow this. This is part of my consciousness. Not only my suffering, but also the suffering of man, human beings, right through the world. So, and what is the quality of a mind that has faced this? What is the quality of your mind when you face this fact? That there is no escape, that there is no rationalization, that any movement of thought is furthering the confusion of sorrow. In seeing the reality of that, I am not using the word truth purposely, seeing the reality of this suffering, what takes place? Now, who is going to answer you? This is not a clever trick on my part. Who is going to answer this question? Because all of us have suffered, in a minor degree or great deal. Either become embittered, cynical, depraved and ugly, run off into some monastery, which are all the incorrect thinking, and therefore bringing about greater confusion, which is part of suffering. So realizing all that, what takes place in the mind? If you answer it correctly, because you're speaking out of the depth of your suffering, not out of your escape or words and explanations, abstractions. Because you have to test this. You can't just accept words and live on words and explanations. They have no meaning. You can't test explanations, but you can test the reality of suffering and actually what takes place. So when I go into the question, of what is love? Isn't one? Because for most of us, suffering is an act of love. Right? I love you, you don't love me. I love you, you have gone away. I love you and am attached to you, and you spurn me. You go away and I'm lonely. I'll never face that loneliness. Now I realize that loneliness. And all this movement of attachment, pleasure, despair, jealousy, anxiety, hate is what we generally call love. No? And we translate that love as human or not human, divine. It's the same process. So I see suffering is one of the acts of what we call love. My God, just realize it, sir. Do you understand? I love you, therefore I suffer. Just think of such a thing.
The second extract is from the third talk at Brockwood Park in 1974 and is titled Understanding Suffering.
There is suffering right through the world, not only poverty, physical suffering. There is also psychological suffering, the fear and the pursuit of pleasure. Now, to understand this suffering, one has to look at it. You know what suffering is? There is a physical suffering, the pain of a disease, and there is the psychological suffering, the loneliness, the emptiness, the utter meaninglessness of one's own existence and the existence of the world. as it is being lived now, and the suffering that's caused by not being loved or loving another, not having that love returned. There are so many different kinds of suffering. And can the mind, your heart, be free of that suffering? Because if one is not free from that suffering, then inevitably all our actions, everything we look at is distorted, perverted, becomes corrupted. So it's very important to find out for ourselves whether it is possible to be totally free from suffering, which doesn't mean that one becomes callous, indifferent, or builds a wall around oneself in isolation. Because when one understands suffering, then out of that suffering comes passion. And passion is necessary. Because without passion, you cannot be together. I do not mean by passion lust. The very word suffering has its meaning, the root meaning of that is passion. And a mind that is constantly suffering, that's constantly is aware of its own fears and its own pursuit of pleasures, is incapable of clear, total action. So it becomes very urgent and important and absolutely necessary whether the mind being the brain, the heart, the whole thing, whether the mind can be free from suffering and yet have that extraordinary sense of vital passion and energy. To find that out, if you're at all serious, and you must be serious when the world is so utterly chaotic, mad, utterly insane, if you're not serious, there's something very wrong. And so one has to find out. This wind is too much, isn't it? One has to find out for oneself, not according to somebody else, not create an ideal out of this suffering, but to find out for oneself whether it is possible for a mind to be entirely free from suffering. That's what we are going to investigate now, together. Each one has his own particular form of suffering. There is not only a personal suffering, but also the collective human suffering. The suffering of people who have not enough food a day, who are uneducated, who have tremendous accidents and are laid up for the rest of their life. The destruction of war, all those people who are maimed, destroyed. And also there is not only that, but also personal suffering. Therefore there is suffering, collective and personal. We are talking about suffering because that's one of our accepted habitual burden. We put up with it, or we idealize it, as the Christians have done, or as the Hindus with their rationalization of karma and all the rest of it. I hope you can hear all this in spite of the wind. Suffering has many causes. Personal loss of someone whom you love, the loss of a job, poverty, a mind that is aware of its own emptiness, shallowness, pettiness, the shoddy life that one leads, or many forms of frustrations. And there is the suffering of death. And when you try to find out the cause of suffering, we are talking about psychologically, is that not a waste of energy and time? Please follow this carefully if you are interested in it. Is not the investigation for the cause of suffering is not only a wastage of energy, but it involves time. All analysis involves time. And we think time will cure the suffering. And so, is it necessary to discover for oneself the cause of suffering? Or deal with suffering and not with the cause? Because cause implies in itself time. And the constant investigation of the cause through analysis is paralysis of action. Right? I hope you understand this. I suffer for various reasons. What is the cause of that suffering? Because I'm perhaps lonely. And then I begin to investigate that loneliness. And in the investigation of that loneliness, I find that I need companionship. Then I will escape from that loneliness and therefore from sorrow. Right? So what have I done? I have gone away from the fact of suffering into a secondary issue. Whereas, if you can look at suffering without escape, without seeking comfort, without rationalizing and investigating the cause, but merely remain with that suffering without any movement of thought. Because it's the movement of thought that has brought about this suffering. You see this? So, the mind is aware that the investigation of a cause is merely the furthering of thought which has brought about suffering. Therefore, there is no relief from suffering. There is only an illusory form of comfort. Are we sharing this together? Right. So can the mind see the truth, the fact that any form of escape from suffering, psychological suffering, is a wastage of energy and therefore of time, of a pursuit of secondary issues, and therefore no solution to sorrow. Now this is clear. Then can the mind remain with that suffering without a single movement of thought? Which doesn't mean that you control thought. Because when you see the truth that any movement of thought is a withdrawal from suffering, when you see the truth of that, it naturally ends. Right? Then the mind is completely immobile with that suffering, and it has all the energy to go beyond itself. You've got it? Have you understood this? That is, we are not talking of physical pain. They can deal with that without going to a doctor, dentist, whatever it is. Take your pill. We are talking of the psychological anxiety, psychological fears, psychological sense of deprivation, negligence, which bring about a great anxiety. This anxiety creates sorrow. And can the mind, without the interference of thought, you have heard a statement that remain with suffering. Don't escape from it. Don't let thought have any place in it. When you hear a statement of that kind, you have already translated it into an idea. Haven't you? And so you are pursuing the idea, not the fact. So without formulating a concept, to listen to the fact that any form of escape from psychological suffering continues that suffering. Can the mind hear it and not make a conclusion out of it? Because we have been trained, educated to draw conclusions. The moment we hear something, there is a conclusion. And according to that conclusion and idea, we act. Whereas we're not acting according to the fact. We are acting according to a conclusion that we have drawn from the fact, which is non-real. Right. So can the mind, please, this demands on your part, if you are serious, a great deal of discipline. We are using that word discipline to indicate not suppression, conformity to a pattern, but the discipline means to learn, not to copy. So, hearing this is to learn. Learning is not to form conclusions. Learning is constantly learning. Right. So, with regard to suffering, when the mind remains totally involved in that suffering without any movement of thought, then out of that totality there is passion.
The third extract is from Krishnamurti's fifth talk in Saanen, 1977, and is titled An Insight into Suffering.
We're going to have an insight into suffering. There is not only a particular human being with his suffering, there is the suffering of the world. Right? There is suffering through poverty, ignorance. There is suffering brought about through death. There is suffering out of great pity. There is suffering when you see animals tortured, killed, maimed. There is suffering when there is war. Thousands of mothers and sisters and wives and people, girls, crying their heart out. Because we have accepted war as I don't know why we have accepted it, but you have. So wars have brought about immense suffering. The totalitarian, the authoritarian dictators have brought immense suffering. Concentration camps, one may not have been in them, but you see it. You know it is happening, and you're suffering. So there are these various kinds of suffering, not only personal, but the suffering of whole of humanity. You are aware of it, aren't you? And we have accepted it. We say love is part of suffering. When you love somebody, it brings about suffering. Right? So we are going to question together whether it is possible to be free of all suffering. And when there is this freedom from suffering in the consciousness of each human being who are listening here, then that freedom from suffering brings about a transformation in consciousness, and therefore that consciousness, that radical change in consciousness affects the whole of mankind's suffering. You understand? That is part of compassion. Not saying, I suffer, my God, my God, my God, why do I suffer, why should I suffer? And from that suffering, act neurotically and try to escape from that suffering through various forms of religious, intellectual, social work and so on. Escape from it. So we are saying, is it possible for every human being here to be free of this enormous burden of suffering? Where there is suffering, you cannot possibly love. That is a truth, a law. When you love somebody and he does something which you, or she does something which you totally disapprove and you suffer, it shows that you don't love. Right? You understand? I am not laying down the law, but see the truth of it. How can I suffer when my wife, if I have a wife or a girl, who throws me away and goes off to somebody else? You understand? And we suffer from that. We get angry, jealous, envious, hateful. And at the same time we say, I love my wife or my girl. I say such love is not love. Right? So is it possible not to suffer and yet have immense love, the flowering of it? So we're going to find out what suffering is. There is physical suffering, right? Headaches, operations, malformed bodies, accidents that bring about amputation or some form of ugly deformity. There is suffering from the various unfulfilled desires. I hope you're following all this. There is suffering from the person, from the loss of a person whom you think you love. After all, what is the structure and the nature and the essence of suffering? You understand? The essence of it, not the various forms of it. What's the essence of suffering? I'm asking myself for the first time. I'm going to find out. Together we're going to find out. Is it not the total expression at that moment of complete self-centered existence. What do you say? It is the essence of the me. The essence of the ego, the person, the limited, enclosed, resisting existence which you call the me, the form, the name, all that. When there is an incident that demands investigation and understanding and insight, that very incident brings about the awakening of the me, the essence. And that I call suffering. What do you say? Huh? If there was no me, would you suffer? You would help, you would do all kinds of things, but you wouldn't suffer. So, suffering then is the expression of the me, which includes self-pity, loneliness, trying to escape, trying to be with the other who is gone. All that's implied, which is the very me, which is the past. The image of the past, which is me. The knowledge, the remembrance of the past, which is me. So, what relationship has suffering, the essence of the me, to love? Please think it out. Let's think it out together. We're asking, is there any relationship between love and suffering? Is love put together by thought, whereas the me is put together by thought? Oh, come on, I see something. Are we following? Is love put together by thought? The experience, the memories, the remembrances, the pain, the delight, the pleasures, and the pursuit of pleasure, sexual or otherwise, the pleasures of possession, possessing somebody, and the somebody liking being possessed. All that is the structure of thought, which we've gone into. And the me, with its name, with its form, the essence of me is the nature and structure put together by thought. Obviously. So what is the relationship between love and suffering? If love is not put together by thought, please go into this, put your heart into this. If love is not put together by thought, then suffering has no relationship to it. Therefore, action from love is different from action from suffering. Get it? Why am I so intense about all this? Why aren't you so intense? So, to have an insight, please follow this, to have an insight into suffering, which means what place has thought in relationship to love and in relationship to suffering. Right? To have an insight into it, which means you are neither escaping, wanting comfort, frightened to be lonely, isolated. Therefore, your mind is free. Therefore, that which is free is empty. And therefore, that empty, if you have that emptiness, and that which means freedom, you have an insight into suffering. Therefore, suffering, as the me disappears, there is immediate action, because that is so. So your action then is from love, not from suffering. You get what I'm talking? Bene, signora. Then one discovers that action from suffering is a continued action of the me modified, and therefore constant conflict. Right? You can see the logic of it all, reason for it. So, it is possible to love and without a shadow of suffering. And what is the action of compassion? You understand? If love is not the result of thought which is the response of memory stored up in the brain as knowledge and experience, that thought is not love, right? And our action is based on thought. Now, I must do this, this is my motive, it's based on the movement and the modification of thought. When thought is not love, then what is the action of compassion? Love. We can say then from there, what is the action of an insight out of which there is intelligence? We are saying compassion is intelligence. What is the action of intelligence? Which is not the outcome of thought, right? What is the action of intelligence? Can you ask such a question? If you have intelligence, it is operating, it is functioning, it is acting. But to say, what is the action of intelligence? You want the response, you want thought to be satisfied. Right? You see what I mean? Look, when you say, what is the action of compassion? Who is asking it? Is it not thought? Is it not the me that says, if I could have this compassion, I'll act differently? Therefore, it's still, when you put that question, you are still thinking in terms of thought. But you have an insight into thought, then thought has its right place, and intelligence and acts.
The final extract in this episode is from the 12th talk in Ojai 1949 and is titled Observing Suffering.
When you suffer, when you have pain, what is the significance? Physical pain has one significance. And probably we mean psychological pain and suffering, which has quite a different significance at different levels. What's the significance of suffering? Why do you want to find the significance of suffering? Not that there is not a significance. We're going to find out. But why do you want to find it? Why do you want to find out why you suffer? When you put that question to yourself, why do I suffer, and are looking to the cause of suffering, are you not escaping from suffering? So when I seek the significance of suffering, am I not avoiding it, evading it, running away from it? The fact is, I am suffering. But the moment I bring the mind to operate upon it, and say, now what? I've already diluted the intensity of suffering. In other words, we want suffering to be diluted, alleviated, put away, explained away. Surely that doesn't give an understanding of suffering. So if I'm free from that desire to run away from it, then I begin to understand what is the content of suffering. Now what is suffering? A disturbance, isn't it? At different levels. Physical, at the different levels of consciousness. An acute form of disturbance, which I don't like. I have my son who is dead. I have built round him all my hopes. My brother, my husband, what you will. I have enshrined him with all the things I want him to be. And I have kept his companion as my companion, you know, all that. And he's suddenly gone. There is a disturbance, isn't there? That disturbance I call suffering. Please, I'm not being harsh, we are examining, trying to understand it. If I don't like that suffering, then I say, why am I suffering? I loved him so much. He was this, I had that. And I try to escape in words, in labels, in beliefs. And most of us do. They act as a narcotic. Now, if I do not do that, what happens? I am simply aware of suffering. I don't condemn it. I don't justify it. I'm suffering. Then I can follow its movement, can't I? Then I can follow the whole content of what it means. I follow in the sense is merely a verbalization to understand something. What does it mean? Then I want to know what it is that is suffering, why there is suffering. Not the cause of suffering, but actually why it is happening. I do not know if you see the difference. Then I'm simply aware of it. Not as apart from me, as an observer watching suffering. It's part of me, that suffering. That is the whole of me suffering. Why? I want to follow its movement. See where it leads. Surely. If I do that, then it opens up, does it not? Then I see that I have laid emphasis on the me first. Not on the person whom I love. He only acted to cover me from my misery, from my loneliness, from my misfortune. I am not this, but he will be that. So that has gone. So I'm left, I'm lost, I'm lonely. Without him I am nothing. So I cry. It's not that he is gone, but I am left. I'm alone. To come to that is very difficult, isn't it? To really recognize it, not merely say I'm alone and just how am I to get rid of that loneliness, which is another form of escape, but to be conscious of it and to remain with it and to see its movement. I'm only taking that as an example. So gradually, if I allow it to unfold, to open up, I see that I am suffering because I am lost. Or I am being called to give attention to something which I am not willing to. Something which is being forced upon me, which I am reluctant to observe and to understand. And there are innumerable people to help me to escape. Thousands of religious people, so-called religious people, with their beliefs and dogmas and hopes and fantasies. It's karma, it is God's will, and this, all giving me a way out. Then if I can still live with it, and not put it away from me, not try to circumscribe it, not to deny it, then what happens? Then what is the state of your mind which is observing suffering? Now, please follow this from what we discussed previously. Is the suffering merely a word or an actuality? If it is actuality and not the word, then the word has no meaning now. So there is merely the feeling of intense pain. With regard to what? With regard to an image, to an experience, to a desire, which you have or have not. If you have, you call it pleasure, if not, it's pain. So pain is in relationship to something. Is that something merely a verbalization or an actuality? I don't know if you're following all this. That is, when sorrow exists only in relationship to something. It cannot exist by itself. And fear cannot exist by itself, but in relationship to something, to an individual, to an incident, to a feeling. Now, you are observing the suffering. Is that suffering apart from you? And therefore you are merely the observer who is suffering? Or is that suffering part of you? Surely we are trying to understand what suffering, pain is, and to go into it fully, not just superficially. Now, when there is no observer who is suffering, is the suffering different from you? You are the suffering, are you not? Not you are apart from the pain. You are the pain. Now what happens? Please, follow it up. There is no labeling. There is no giving it a name and thereby brushing it aside. You are merely that pain, that feeling, that sense of agony. Then what happens when you are that? When you do not name it, when there is no fear with regard to it, is the center related to it? If the center is related to it, then it is afraid of it. If the center is related to it, then it is afraid of it. Then it must act and do something about it. But if the center is that, then what do? There is nothing to be done, is there? Please, it is not mere acceptance. Follow it, you will see. If you are that and you are not accepting it, you are not labeling it, you are not pushing it aside, you are that thing. What happens? Do you say you suffer then? Surely that fundamental transformation has taken place. Then there is no longer I suffer, because there is no center to suffer. And the center suffers because we have never examined what the center is. We just live from word to word, from movement to movement, from reaction to reaction. We never say, let me look what that thing is that suffers. And you cannot look by enforcement, by discipline. You must look with interest, with that spontaneous comprehension to find out. Then you will see the thing that we call suffering, pain, the thing that we avoid, the discipline, all have gone. As long as we have no relationship to the thing as outside of me, the problem is not. But the moment I establish a relationship outside me, the problem is. And as long as I treat suffering as something outside, because of my brother, because I have no money, because of that, then I establish a relationship, and that relationship is fictitious. Then if I am that thing, which is a fact, then the whole thing is transformed, the whole thing has a different meaning. Then there is full attention, integrated attention. Then that which is completely regarded, observed, is understood and dissolved, and therefore there is no fear. And therefore the word sorrow is non-existent.